And also at the outset, I should thank the organizers for having me here, and especially Professor Joshi, who is responsible for me to come here as a speaker. So I have been asked to talk about in this particular session. Then I thought, initially I mentioned that I would be talking on this accessibility and also equity. How do we improve that in our cities? Then I thought that first we should actually understand where are we, what are the problems in our cities, and then we will be able to think about this equity and accessibility. So in fact, you all heard about range of presentations, and if you compile all of them, in fact, we have the 100% GYAN. We got it actually through this UMI. In the previous session, as somebody said, that kind of knowledge is already there, but the problem is actually the implementation. Now, when you talk about transportation and urban areas, these are actually the problems that we always, every day talk about. So we have congestion on roads, not only congestion on the roads, but also congestion inside the public transport vehicles, crowding inside the public transport vehicles. And of course, we all are very much worried about the pollution, noise, reduction of green spaces when we are expanding our roads, implementing more and more public transport systems, visual intrusion, community severance, because people sometimes these become barriers, they divide the communities. Also the accidents, of course. Then the last two are very pertinent and important to this particular session. So we are not so far talking about, because we are firefighting with pollution, firefighting with so many other problems, but we are not actually looking at whatever systems that we are providing, are they reaching to all the sections of the population? So what about the equitable accessibility? So those are the last two points, especially whatever you do, the disproportionately disadvantaged population should also be taken into account. Now some data. Of course, the urbanization is growing, and in fact, there are two contradicting reports by World Bank. The official figures say that the urbanization would reach 52% by 2050. But as on today, another report says the hidden urbanization in India is already 50%. So they say that urban-like facilities are available are accessible to that kind of population. So we cannot stop it. Urbanization is there, and we need to be prepared to take care of whatever are the problems because of that arise out of this urbanization. Now, why I am showing this slide, household size, what it got to do with this equity accessibility. So you all know that transport planners actually find out how many trips are going to come out of from each land parcel. So they relate it to the number of people inside that particular traffic analysis zone we call. But unless we relate it to the household level, so transport planners, it is a very well-known fact, if the family size is huge, the per capita trip rate is less. If the family size is very less, the per capita trip is very high. So now the family is becoming more and more nuclear, the trip rates per head are going to increase, and we need to actually, the demand modelers, the transport planners, they have to take this into account and then plan for the future. Now another problem is the car ownership. I'm also going to talk about the car, public transport, that vicious circle. We have entered into that. Maybe car can be replaced by two-wheeler here, maybe in some cities. So this is what actually is the picture of the world. And you can see the North American cities, they are completely car-oriented cities, and they stand at 800. So we should do everything so that we don't actually replicate that kind of situation. Now here I would like to show two examples, Singapore and Hong Kong. Though their GDP levels are very high, but why their car ownership levels are very low? So the example is they have put in restrictive policies. So there is a quota system, and even if you get license to buy a car, you have to pay a huge amount of money. Now this is what is happening in Mumbai. Mumbai is actually placed in a better position. So you can see the motorized ownership, it includes private car as well as two-wheeler. So it is about 164 as on 2014, 164 cars plus two-wheelers per 1,000 people. But this may be 3 times in Delhi. So why this? Because Mumbai has, traditionally, people are habituated using public transport, and there is a good public transportation system, but now it is under severe stress. Now I am going to talk about this car, public transport. You can actually replace car by two-wheeler as well here. The incomes are increasing because of urbanization, a lot of economic activity happening, increase in, let us say, two-wheeler ownership. Then all the two-wheelers are on the road instead of they being inside the buses. Then this is going to cause more congestion. The buses will find it difficult to maintain their travel times. Then operating costs increasing, fares may be increased initially. Then car you are making again two-wheeler much more attractive, and then it again results in. So this is that vicious circle. And in that vicious circle, of course, because of increased car ownership, people may shift to car, reduced bus demand for buses, reduced bus frequency, and again, this is also causing increase in. So how to beat that? So you may say, like Singapore or Hong Kong, would you like to introduce restraint policies? Or you want to provide also subsidy to public transport? Now, these are the issues which are to be coupled along with the highlight of this topic, equity and accessibility. Now, another thing that is happening because of rapid urbanization, if there are no controls, we talked about that ASI, avoid, shift, improve. Avoid is about compact land use, mixed land use, transit-oriented development. Once you are not following that, sprawl is too much. In that case, there is urbanization, sprawl in built-up area, the infrastructure provision becomes costly. Again, the public transport operators refuse to run their buses to these extreme areas. Then that is also a problem. Now, in addition, I just would also like to show this slide. This shows the energy consumption per person related to the population density. Now, I want you to concentrate on just Houston. So Houston in USA is actually third largest city, maybe more than 5 million population. But the area over which it is spread is huge. So that's why the area per person is very, very high there. And because of that, you can see the kind of energy consumption they are consuming. So we should never move towards that. Our cities should be very compact. Now, what about our situation right now? Model shares in Indian cities. So you just look at Surat. Okay, Professor Joshi is from Surat. Today also in TV I am seeing that there is actually an NGO campaign of cycle. There is a promotion of cycle. I think some people are using lots of cycles there. They want to promote bicycles. But these are the cities. Some of we talk about only the mega metros. But what is happening next level cities, which have already become big metros, like Surat, Pune, so on and so forth. So there you can see where is the public transport there. In the bars, that light green shade is actually public transport, and it is not visible in Surat. It is maybe less than 1%. Okay? So that is the kind of situation. And diminishing public transport. I am again taking an example of city in Gujarat, that is Vadodara. So this you might actually recollect when you were a child. Okay, you remember that you are using buses. Okay, so the bus was the favorite mode, but we actually slowly killed it. So we have not put the policies in line with whatever is happening, economic growth, urbanization, all that. Now in Vadodara, you can see that in 1985, see the bus share, about more than 20%, that finally has reduced to this much, and the population increase is from 0.84 million to 1.99. So that is what happened. So what is the reason for this diminishing public transport? I think Professor Joshi's student only conducted a stated preference survey. They actually stated these reasons. So in fact, the fleet size of 200 buses in 85 has reduced to 85 in 2006. So it has entered into that vicious circle, and then this is the result of that. Not providing door-to-door service, lack of information on bus schedule, infrequent, crowding inside the vehicles, all that. Now here, one point comes out. When you think of public transport, you also want the affluent sections of the people to use public transport. But in that case, you need to use the principle of differentiated public transport systems. So that's what precisely is happening in Mumbai. I'll explain you that. Then I'll also put how the bus share has reduced gradually. So what is the current bus share in most of the cities? You can see the Indian cities, Surat again 2.3%, Indore 4.5. So these are share of trips by bus. And most of the cities, they are, excepting maybe Mumbai, they're all bus-oriented cities. But in these cities, Indore, Jaipur, Surat, Pune, the share of bus is very, very less. Then come to the equity issue. So once we talk about equity issue, we need to at least divide the population into income groups, of course, based on age, based on gender, based on various other socially disadvantaged groups. You can do that. But the point that I would like to highlight here is, in Pune, the citizens group has actually voluntarily done this survey. In fact, we transportation planners are very afraid of segmenting because that actually creates too much work for us. Modeling becomes difficult, so we always avoid it. But thanks to these citizens who have collected this data, and they have clearly shown what exactly is the model split income group wise. If you go to the high income group, the red one is two-wheeler and car. It is huge, and public transport is negligible. Now, how do you bring them to public transport? Yeah, thank you. So this is another problem. This is the point that I am driving at. The crowding inside the public transport vehicles is severe in Mumbai. So in Mumbai, the metro system is actually planned in order to augment this system. Now, it is also a differentiated policy kind of public transport. So your fares will not be subsidized like on the suburban. It is air-conditioned system. So thereby, it also encourages the affluent people on the high-income group whom we have seen, they are not using public transport to shift to. So that kind of policy can be also implemented. Then these slides I will skip because now you are experts in this avoid, shift, improve approach in order to, okay. Now coming to how exactly the transport planners can take care of this equity issue. So you can actually think of the generalized cost. All transport planners know about it. So when you actually do this kind of transport planning, you need to consider the components of the generalized cost, which includes you may walk to reach the bus stop, then there is inside the bus in-vehicle travel time, you may transfer, then you may, if you are using public transport, private vehicle, you may have to park. Then another thing is the discomfort, okay? So you can actually introduce a lot of parameters, including the discomfort that is caused to the disabled people there. And then use some weights to all these components. Once you add up all of them, that is what is generalized cost. Now, this is one example. When you, this example gives you, for actually Pune city, you have divided that into middle, high, and low. The kind of weightages they give to waiting time, travel time, and discomfort. Look at high-income group. They give very large weightage to their time, but whereas low-income group, less weightage to time, but more weightage to the cost they pay, and discomfort also how they rate. Now, how to address equity issues in transportation planning? Now, you can think of this generalized cost, how much improvement has happened in this generalized cost for each group. So that way you can actually make sure that each and every socioeconomic group has got some benefit. The net benefits to travelers for different socioeconomic groups can be worked out due to the implementation of any transportation improvement. Net benefit to the income group with respect to age, with respect to gender, and with respect to various. Now, this point I again wanted to stress to facilitate shift to public transport from various socioeconomic groups. We can also use this differentiated supply of public transport. Now, this is what actually the accessibility as equity measure I am proposing. So it is simply Cij is generalized cost. If I want to travel from my place to the place J, and then e power minus, so that actually is the deterrence. It has to be as minimum as possible. And I want to access an activity E in the land parcel J, and sum over all people, but it is worked out for each socioeconomic group. So I would find out what is the accessibility that is available to each socioeconomic group. And you can also normalize and then find out how much it is. So because of lack of time, I made it very short. And even our national transport policy, whether you look at it, the smart cities project, the fine print, if you read all the points, they actually incorporate all these issues. They incorporate matters relating to equity, matters relating to accessibility, differentiated public transport, everything is included. It is actually a matter of people understanding them and then implementing them in the right way. So thank you very much for the patient hearing.